I'm Carrie Penny, and you're listening to Secret Heart Broadcasting. Hello, welcome to Secret Heart Broadcasting, and on today's show, embracing the artist's heart with filmmaker and sculptor and one of my best friends, Lisa Frickland. Welcome, Lisa, to the podcast.
Thank you, Carrie.
I feel like I'm really lucky to catch you in person, as I know you spend most of your time in the San Francisco Bay Area, where you now live.
I do.
Which is so cool for a girl what grew up here on the prairies. We have known each other a long time, and
yeah.
I think that's true, despite the fact that we've barely just turned 30.
That's right.
Do you remember how we met?
That was in college, of course, and we there were so many people in our class, but we always thought you were very cool, and very happy with you how your career just arced right away after college. I went off to a small town TV station, and you're in the big city doing all these TV shows. I was very impressed.
I remember telling my daughter, you don't want to peak too early. So for a moment, I thought I peaked too early.
Oh, I did very well.
So our producer, Riley, was just in and setting up the microphones and everything. And she's
Riley.
a dear, yeah.
Yes.
And she's just beginning her career in broadcasting in this area. And you and I are kind of anyway, we've been in this a long time. And I don't want to sound like, it was different then, Riley. But it really was. Like, we were often the only two women on a shoot. And you were a camera. That never happened.
Yeah, it's pretty rare for that to happen, but just follow the course.
Yeah, and I have followed you up. You are fearless.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, we worked on a lot of corporate and educational and small films together. But wow, you are just, from the get-go, fearless. The first time I remember working with you was covering the Calgary Stampede Parade, which in the city we live in is a really big deal. And I don't know how many miles long that parade path is, but we started out together, early in the morning, like 4:30 or 5 in the morning. And you were just off like a rocket, carrying a camera. And I couldn't, I'm trying to get release forms and talk to people, and I just couldn't keep up with you. And that was
Well, a parade doesn't stop for anyone, really. So you have to just keep going. If we're following that particular float around, you can't miss it. And you want to get people's reaction to the float. And it's funny enough, I've had to cover 3 things in the Calgary Stampede over my career. And I've walked the Stampede 3 times. And, because I can't miss it. Just keep going. I think you and I lost track of each other for a while.
In the throngs of people.
Yeah, it was before the days of cell phones too, so it was a little complicated.
But the universe provided, and we found each other. I've learned from you. I mean, I've learned so many things from you, despite in addition to our fabulous college education. But the idea that you go. Like, just go. If you see the shot over there, just go. Don't be afraid. And for you, that's like climbing water towers or mountains or helicopters, or you just have this fearlessness that I have always admired.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that had to be learned
really
after a while. Well, there's also just there's things you always become afraid of. I remember when I was a kid, my dad says, "Let's climb up this." Part of a mountain wall to get to a lake to go fishing. And it just seemed too daunting and steep for me. And I just shut down on them. And, nowadays I wouldn't do that. But I think just sometimes I had to learn, if you want to get something done or make a career goals, you got to take on things and try not to be reckless, but just go for it. And I, just learned work ethic. I was always, I think I got past some of those fears. Doesn't mean I was always something we're afraid of, but
like
nice.
Snake.
Oh no, I'm not. Snakes, I'm good. Spiders, I don't know.
Lisa did this show called, I think, Snake Catchers.
Yeah, Mississippi snake grabbers. Yeah. Yeah, and then we were in the swamps of Mississippi doing a TV show for country music television with redneck guys who were, they were law enforcement officers, but their hobby, the way to release the tension of their lives, was to go into the swamps and grab snakes out of trees and put them in a well of a boat and then release them later, of course. But they just loved that challenge of just grabbing snakes. But when they do that, the snake gets all freaked out and he usually bites the camera person when the snake's flying around. So I got bit by a bunch of snakes. And, fortunately, they're not poisonous snakes.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, yeah, exactly. And every now and again they point out, now look over there. That's going to be that's a water moccasin. You don't want to go near a cottonmouth. You don't want to be near that. And I was like, no. And this is this black bicycle tire thing laying out in the that one you don't want. Or sometimes you see an alligator like a few hundred feet away, and you're like, oh, keep away from that too.
Did you ever fall out of the boat?
I was in the boat. I was out of the boat the whole time when we shot this series.
You were in the water?
We were in the water the whole time.
With the alligators?
Yes. We would walk slowly through the swamp when you have like little rubber shoes on. But yeah, you can't see because it's Mississippi mud. So you just slowly walk through the water to the next location. Yeah, and one camera person, he dumped his camera in himself because he tripped over a reed in the water, which was unfortunate.
We think it was a reed in the water.
Well, yeah, and he also got bit by a guarfish at one time, and it gave him an infection, and it was pretty nutty. But my luck was far better. I think I stepped on a catfish once, but I could feel it slip underneath I could feel it slip under my feet. But yeah, so that was like, okay, well, we got to get the shot. We got to get this done. So jump in the water and do it.
So is it your head or your heart over your head then, or how does that work in the moment? Because I'm not sure, like honestly, and I worked hard to be self-aware. I'm not sure I would be on the Snake Catcher show, and funnily enough, I wasn't.
I don't know. It's a desire to take on a challenge, I think. I've never had too much fear of snakes, but if it was Mississippi's spider catchers, I might be a little bit reserved about that. I mean, I think there's a passion of trying to get a fun TV show together, and I did enjoy our subjects in the show too. So hanging out with them was good, and it was the summer in Mississippi, so it's always like 100 degrees. So really, the best form of survival was to jump into the water just to be cooler than it was to be out in the boat the whole time.
When we got to know each other, so we met in college. We had some time, many hours on the road in motel rooms waiting for things to happen on a shoot. We spent a lot of time together, you and I. And one thing that was revealed was that we both went to high school in the same city, which happens to be Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Different high schools, but the same math teacher.
That was funny how we brought that story up. We were just sort of talking. I was really good in math. I was terrible
in math.
Yeah, and I had this teacher, and her name, and we mentioned her name, and then you said I had that teacher. So, but separate high schools. Mm-hmm. That lady moved to different high schools, but we had the same. She had the same effect.
And first of all, God bless teachers, right?
Of course,
yes. And I just did not have the brain for math,
no,
and I was kind of that kid in the back who's like, why art can't be quantified by numbers, and she had a response for that. They're just yes, art can be quantified by numbers.
Yeah, and I used to just shut down, and she goes, well, why don't you just figure it out? It's just so easy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not figuring this out. And we kind of came to, so it's probably of all teacher, I did rather well in school, but it was the one thing where a frustrated teacher who's, wherever her situation was, I walked out of her class a few times. I just said, I can't take this. And I go to the guidance office. And, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, but I can't do this.
I can't understand math. And then my favorite quote, what are you not understanding?
Exactly. All of it? I don't know.
Anyway, so we're here to say that you can, not do well in math and
move ahead.
Yes. Yes, and be sitting on a podcast. So you have really moved ahead, my friend.
Thank you.
You just are always at a 10, I think. I observe that. I mean, you did say you moved to you've done a couple of small town TV stations with some very funny stories. You've shot everything.
Yeah. I moved all across the prairies and start, just trying to reach that golden ring, and hopefully think, maybe one day I'll be working in Toronto or working in a national newscast or something. What was the goal? Because back then when we got out of school, if you wanted to be a camera person, you worked news generally in TV station.
Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to be a reporter, major market or foreign correspondent.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to be in San Francisco. And let's just say, once again, a quiet, shy girl from the Canadian prairies goes on to become, I didn't say this in the intro, but you're quite a well-known sculptor as well.
Oh, lots of things have happened.
Yes, so take us through that and talk a little bit about what needed to be in place for you to continue to say yes.
A lot of it's kind of just joining the Burning Man world. I think that was the Burning Man's that festival in Nevada that it's an arts festival. It's a free thinkers, free expression festival. At one point, I sort of got involved in the rave community in Calgary, and it was fun. In dancing, I love dancing, but to meet some of these interesting, authentic characters through these raves, and then I wanted to go, well, what's more? I don't just, some of the culture just kind of was getting a little boring. So let me meet the real people. And once I did, they were saying, well, we're going to this Burning Man thing. And once there's an ethos of do it yourself and say yes. There's immediacy and helping out and just do it. And so I think that sort of made an imprint on me. And then whilst there, I'd see there's a lot of public art that gets brought to Burning Man, and experimental artists who show art publicly. They're successful people, and they would bring pieces, and I go, wow, they've done some amazing things. I'd like to try that too, even though I'm a like a cinematographer, videographer,
and still photographer.
It's still photography, yeah. I thought I wouldn't mind doing that here, but I'd like to try a hand at this sculpting or building something different. And I played around with something, different materials, plenty of failure, especially in the desert with dust. Working with plastics didn't work, and I had to keep playing around with stuff. And then during that time, because this is a Calgarian driving down to Nevada with all her friends and playing about.
And your first year in a tent, by the way.
Oh, yes.
A tent in the middle of the desert.
Yes, it was. It's like being in an oven the whole time. It's a bit uncomfortable, and a lot of people do tent it, and they still do. But hats off to them because they like that. But I'm one night out dancing with some friends at Burning Man. This man jumped out in front of me who was very enthusiastic, and I often tell him he had jazz hands because he was a good dancer. But he wanted to spend more time with me out there, and then these sort of connections happen at Burning Man. But the long story short was this man became my husband after a few years. It was a long distance romance. I would fly to the California area, and then he'd fly up to Calgary. And when we got married, I eventually moved down to the Bay Area. And he owns a welding shop, and welding steel materials, heavy things like that, do very well in the desert. And so we combined to said, let's try this. Let's make some pieces together and see what happens.
So you sort of met the man of your dreams who also happened to be a welder to help you realize your dreams.
Exactly. Yeah.
So before we get to the art, which is amazing, you left your career, your friend group, you sold your home, and you moved to California on, kind of I was going to say a flyer. I mean, obviously you and his name is Robert. Yeah. You and Robert were, very connected. That was obvious. But you gave up a lot. So can you talk about that? Because that was a lot.
There's a fair bit of sacrifice that had to be done. I knew he was worth it. I certainly wasn't in desperate need to leave Calgary. Mm-hmm. I had everything sorted out here. Had a nice home, a great career path, and all my friends. I didn't know he was going to be worth it. And there was a sense of like, what a new adventure could be. I thought, it's kind of ironic. I remember all the girls in high school would be talking about when I get older, I'm going to live in California, and I'm going to live there, and I have a rich husband, and it's just high school kid talk, right? Mm-hmm. I used to go, oh, that's your dream, I guess. But so I think it was a funny turnaround that by the time years later, I'm the one who moved to California out of that girl group. and here there I am, and moved down here, and it all new challenges, find new clients for my photography and video business. Harder than I thought it would be, but in California is different than, or United States is different than Canada. There's a certain edge to living in the United States that's different from from Canada, and it's subtle nuances that threw me off. And at times I could be pretty upset about things, but I mean, even being robbed at gunpoint one time in Oakland was too much.
Talk about needing to regulate your nervous system.
Exactly. But it's been worth it. I mean, and ask me in January what I think about living in California as opposed to Alberta. Mm-hmm. It's quite good.
When you moved there and you said, there were moments when it was hard and you had to rebuild your client base and your friend base and put all your eggs in the husband basket, right?
Definitely.
Both you and I got married quite later in life.
Yeah.
What kept you going, or how do you get through those times when you're just maybe having self-doubt, or... I
guess I had to believe in myself a little bit.
Yeah, a lot.
But there's a lot of adventure in it. Mm-hmm. It's important not to fold in too much. It wasn't easy. I thought it would be easier moving down there. But when you move later in life, you got to learn to make new friends. And when you're younger, you experiences bring friendships to you. So school is good. You're going through experiences with people. That's as you and I. Mm-hmm. You're working together. You have experiences, so you do social things together with people. So I come down to California, and I have a wonderful resume. Worked for all these TV networks in Canada, director of photography for Food Network and HDTV, all these fantastic. I'm like, ta-da, I'm here. And they're like, so what? Because we have all the other people who've done the same thing as well, and we don't know you. Everything's relationship based. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I had to start over again and really be humble and cap in hand for some of the simplest jobs to prove that, doesn't my resume speak enough to you? But the trust factor has been, it had to be learned all over again. And it's getting there. It's not the same as it was, but it's good. But I don't know. I guess I came down there at the right time because I had done so much traveling when I was in Canada in 2 or 3 month jobs. I went down to California to be, to be married to this really nice fellow. And so I want to work on my relationship rather than career. I think I made my point with the career thing. Now I'm making my point with our relationship and this art thing.
Which really took you to a new creative level. You've always been deeply creative. Also, wonderfully funny. There's just no one better to pass endless hours on the road with than you. We've had some fun.
We sure have.
So can we talk a little bit about the art? You alluded to the fact when you first went to Burning Man, you saw something there that was really captivating for you. And
definitely.
Yeah, and it is fair to say, as I believe the San Francisco Chronicle or one of those newspapers referred to you as Burning Man royalty.
Oh yes, we've had a little bit of that. Well, we've brought art to Burning Man, since. Oh man, we first started in 2010 or 2009, and we've been every year now. We've been given art grants from the organization to help seed these projects we do, and then they also help us sell the pieces afterwards or rent them to civic groups. And yeah, we've been lucky.
The first one I remember is Penny the Goose, made out of Canadian pennies. But you tell us more about Penny the Goose.
In Canada, in was it 2012, we took out the circulation of the penny. Yeah, I know. Sorry, penny. It was. I thought I'd seen some articles in newspapers about, we can make a floor with pennies or a countertop. You just lay it on top. Okay, but what else can you do with this pattern? My mind was working with patterns and a material that is endearing. People love pennies since their childhood. Kids like to collect them, and so I have a lot of it, and they kind of look good. They're shiny. It's a pretty strong material. It's guaranteed by a mint, so it's going to last, dozens and dozens of years. I thought, if I just tile them a certain way, maybe I can make the pattern of a bird's feathers. And I was thinking, oh, Canada goose, yeah. So, and I'm the Canada goose who flew away to the United States. So we made a 19-foot wide wingspan Canada goose to bring to Burning Man. And it was one-sided with Canadian pennies on it. And we layered it all with epoxies to hold up. And it worked rather well. And a few years later, we thought, let's finish it. And it was with some good advice from some people, and put American pennies on the other side, since the goose flies between two countries. And yeah, it was enormously successful. I think, especially for our egos to get it done. We also created a volunteer team who they love Burning Man, but they want to contribute to the event, like a preload for the event, and to have something that's brought there. And then we gained all these friends from coming together, and that helped me a lot too, being the stranger in a new country, and to gain a new friendship group
through the art world.
Yeah,
and crafting.
And crafting,
working together to build something.
Well, certainly, and what our projects are, they're meticulous. It's one penny at a time being inserted, like being placed on an object, and you can talk to people. It's like it's a knitting bee, and it's almost like you get it, not a trance, but you certainly get into a mode where you're concentrating, just one at a time, and then maybe because of the pace and pattern, people can talk to each other, and it's very calming. So that's what all our volunteers tell us.
And the stories that come out.
Oh, certainly, yeah. We've had some wonderful, like I saw all the friends we've met through. It's like, wow, you did what?
Shall we take a moment and tell the Dottie story?
Oh, yeah. So we have a dear friend who is one of our volunteers. And we're sitting making this goose and putting the pennies in. And it's just her and I that day. And I said, she says, Dottie, I really love Elvis. And I says, if I could go back in time, I'd like to go to one of those Las Vegas shows in 1971 and just to see Elvis perform, just because it'd be fun. And then she had a pause. She goes, I kissed Elvis. And I was at one of those shows as well, an opening night. I went, what? And so she had the whole story about her being she was a chorus girl in a traveling show called No 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 Net. And she was she had a friend of hers who was dating Elvis on the side, but Elvis and his friends brought Dottie and her friend to Palm Springs on a dark night on No 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 Net, and they all hung out together and did dune buggy rides in the middle of the night. And anyways, when she first met Elvis, he kissed her, and then there's a few other times they all hung out, and he was called Dottie Dixie all the time. Dixie, I want you to, I'm gonna buy a car for your friend. I want to do that. You're going to help me do a surprise party for her, And so there's all these stories came out. It's just like surprising, all the neat things that people tuck away.
And Dottie's gone now.
She sadly passed away last year, which is it was quite unexpected. But she had some fine stories and just a kind heart and
coming together again over art.
Over art,
yeah.
And she loved Burning Man a lot, and she, her son was involved in it, and then, her husband enjoyed it as well, and she taught tap dancing at Burning Man. Here in the middle of the desert, they brought out this wood floor, and she was bringing these people out in the desert heat and showing them how to shuffle chain ball,
flat ball change.
Yeah, yeah.
Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about the bear? So you've gone from the goose, which was sort of like, hey, this works, and I think the Burning Man community was like, who are these people making these interesting things?
So I thought, okay, I've made my point with one way of doing these pennies, and I thought, what else can you do? It's like you can just lay them down. I said, what if I stand the pennies on their sides and create a pattern like fur? And we would insert this into a special concrete mixture, cement mixture, and this concrete build would be strong, and you can't pull the pennies out of it. We've found the right material, and it was still a one penny at a time process. But we came up with like a 13-foot tall grizzly bear standing on his back legs. And we came up with this lofty story that this is we called the bear Ursa Major, which is the big bear, and it's reaching to the stars, to the constellation, and its ambition. But really, when people at Burning Man, when they saw this large bear, they go, "Hey, that bear's waving at us. That's cool. Let's call it Penny Bear." Yes, and that's how it worked for them, and that was an enormously successful project for us. We felt, and it sold to a buyer who called himself Papa Bear, and that bear went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to his home. And it got eventually rented from them or loaned from them to a Burning Man exhibition in Washington, D.C. So it went from the San Francisco Bay Area to Santa Fe and then onto the streets of Washington for 9 months as part of this Burning Man show. And then we took it back to Santa Fe. It's still there. Yeah, and then that opened up just interesting avenues through that couple, and we built them another one because they're very rich they were entrepreneurs and they're very giving people, but they had a house in Telluride, Colorado, so they asked us to build one for Telluride, and almost similar bear, and it's like the first piece of public art in Telluride, which is a tall grizzly bear. Yeah.
So you're moving to San Francisco and meeting your beloved, and then now working together with your beloved. You started this Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson Art.
We did, yeah, and because my husband's very skeptical about my madness sometimes, but I come up with an idea, but he also helps with the execution and the logistics on how something like this could work. Because if I was to say, yeah, I'm going to make a 13-foot tall grizzly bear
out of concrete and
pennies, like I would just crumble in a heap, crying mess because I couldn't figure out how to make that all happen. But he'll go, okay, here's how we make the steel structure inside, and this is how we get it onto the trailer, and this is the pick point where the crane has to, lift through the head, and that's so important. So that's the two-sided creative process for us, and it's just good to bounce ideas off each other.
I do want to talk about you've done iterative bears, and you also. Your bear is in front of Google headquarters. You've done another bear.
We did. It's funny how this whole thing worked out because you get known for a certain thing you do after a while, and we've played with other materials. I've made concrete flower snake. I made a bee out of monofilament, which is that plastic material for brooms. Because bees are hairy. But I'm always kind of working with concretes and things. But people keep asking us, can you do things with pennies again? We really like your penny bears. Well, okay, all right. So I think a lot of other artists might get pegged into something that you're successful once and then just keep doing it.
Like a hit song.
Yeah, kind of like that. Do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again. Certainly. So, but I think, we always have to set new challenges and not just keep creating the same thing.
Yeah.
So I work with different poses with these animals, and the goal is always to see if I can make it better the next time.
I was going to say, how are they received at Burning Man? Because that's really where the unveiling is always at the Burning Man Festival in August.
Very well. And we get this brand new, pretty piece of art that we take out to the desert, and then a dust storm kicks in and makes it all filthy, but that's the price you pay. It's the purgatory of Burning Man. But and it shows how you have to make a structure that can hold up to the elements, which proves that after the event it can go to a place where it's snowing or where it gets lots of rain and too much sun, and all our pieces hold up very well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I did mention the Google Bear, which I think is huge.
And we've talked about that.
And do you want to talk more about that?
Oh, no, sure. And
Okay.
It's one of those pieces we entered a competition at Google. They were looking for artists who could put pieces. They're looking for like 5 pieces that can go out in front of their new headquarters in Mountain View, California. And they approached Burning Man to kind of facilitate it. And we were amongst hundreds of artists who put in a submission, and we were kind of tickled that they asked us to do it. And I think part of it was the name. I came up with this bear. I called it Curious, which is not a bad name for a company that it's a search engine. So, and we made this very tall bear. It's about 11 feet, no, about 10 feet tall, and oversized, of course. And it just kind of looks down at you like you're a flower. So you walk up to it and you can stare at it. Yeah, we're rather pleased we did that one.
I want to just switch gears here and talk about your influences. So the story is remarkable, Lisa, and also you're a really fine human being with a great work ethic. I mean, it is. I just feel so blessed to have you in my life as a friend.
Thank you.
And my daughter adores you, and I'm wondering. Speaking about mothers and daughters, like, you told the story of your dad kind of making you climb this rock face to go fishing. What kind of a presence was your mom in your life, and how did she influence you?
Oh, enormously strong. I mean, the worst part was losing my mother when I was like 27 years old, 28 years old. But when I was growing up, I kind of considered her a friend because she had good advice. And I could always have her ear as, she would give motherly advice, but also just generally just common sense advice too. That like not to tell me what to do, but more like, are you sure you want to do it that way, hon? Or like, as I look back at the advice over the years, it makes a lot of it makes sense. She encouraged me with my career, and it was good. I mean, was she the talented artist that brought it on? I don't know, but she certainly knew how to make a nice home and knew how to decorate very well. But I think it's just the encouragement I got from her, I give her full credit on that. Yeah, like I said, when we lost her. It was a gut punch that happens. But so with, I guess I keep looking back at her, and I feel in a way I could still talk to her because I feel her presence, or the presence is in my head because I'm kind of a clone of her anyways. So I always think I'm with her anyhow.
I have the same thing with my mom. I feel her presence very close. Some days more close than others. Have you ever had an experience? Has she come to you in a dream? We hadn't planned on talking about this, and I don't know if that is something you want to share. But have you ever had kind of a moment when it's like, oh, wow, I really just felt my mom? Yeah,
the closest I have, I get with that. I channel it better now. I did this. Because of these Burning Man people, I did this ayahuasca journey, and it was one of these things where I could take it takes your mind into a whole different realm when you do these journeys. But then it was just, I really knew that I was part of my mother, part of my father. I answered all these questions. You go into these journeys just asking questions, and it's like, well, she's still there, and I figured out stuff about my father, about how he behaves. I just needed to maybe clear the slate, and I could see it differently. Mm-hmm. So now I always, when I said before, like, I'm kind of a clone of her, so it's always there. So you could always find that advice.
Maybe she'd say, "Careful with the snakes."
Yeah. Yeah, don't get bit too much.
If you could, I know you don't have children of your own, but you've had an enormous influence on many children, I think, and young people. And I hate to say, what advice would you give? But this comes into that question I'm very curious about, legacy and advice. You clearly have lived a life where you have constantly pointed yourself in the direction you want to go, and often that has meant giving up things, but also gaining things. So, what advice would you give to someone? Let's take our beloved Riley. Like, what advice would you give to someone Riley's age about being, I guess I'm specifically thinking about women in a career and moving forward in life, constantly pointing yourself in the direction you want to go?
Oh, well, you got to say yes as much as you can. I mean, and that was the things that were taught to me. I remember I had a high school drama teacher, and he always said, say yes. And it kind of went over my head, but it still sticks with me, like and that's that. And then Burning Man teaches immediacy, so not to be hesitant. I think everyone's got to be fully aware. I sort of tell folks is that, and this is a great advice from my past friend Christine, who always said to me, she says, if you make one decision, it's going to be a cost. So always be prepared to know that it's going to cost you something, but you're going to get something else out of it. So don't be disappointed that you lose something, but be happy that you gain something else. You're not going to get it all. You're not, it's like, for me, it's, okay, follow the career. You kind of lose out on the family part early. Or moving for me to California. Okay, I'm going to lose out seeing my friends as much as I used to. Sacrifice the career. But look what I get out of it. I get all this reward of being with a wonderful husband. I get warm Januaries and Februaries. And this new art career thing sort of took off. It's just a unique part of life. Life didn't get predictable. And so it's take the time to try something else. Don't get caught in a rut. Really, and we often see folks who gets sort of in the wheel there, and then it's safe, but then there's a cost to pay for it. Your life you might be unsatisfied with life. So, but if you want safe, that's the price you're going to pay. But if you want something scary, well, the payoff is going to be good. So take it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I am so very glad that you were in my city today to come by the studio and have this conversation. And happy birthday. We both just celebrated significant birthdays this year. So, yeah. Well, I'm going to take a page from the Lisa Fricklin book and be a bit more fearless this year. And I know, I'll start a podcast.
You are. Look at this. This is amazing. It's nice to see you back, doing these, back on, on air style work.
Before we go, did you have a book you wanted to recommend?
Oh, a book. Oh, well, here's my problem is I wouldn't say a problem. My husband might call it a problem, but I read too many books about women who were spies in World War II, or people who were in the resistance in World War II. Even during the Cold War, there's numerous. I mean, the one that kind of twisted my mind was the Tailors of Auschwitz. I know. That's really deep. But there's, and there's another book called Women of No Importance. There's a lady named Virginia Hall, who was an American who went and ran resistance network in France, in Vichy, France, during the war. It's soldiers are during the war, fantastic, but women are particularly vulnerable. But they're running guns and moving mercenaries through, through an occupied country, and women can be, it could be really bad, and a lot of them suffered by going to prison. But what they did is they said no as well. I often say to myself, would you be able to do something like this?
Mm-hmm. No as an act of resistance.
Yeah. But to say, okay, well, I'm gonna come up with a cover. I'm gonna tell people one thing, but then I'm going to put my life on the line, not my career or some relationship, but my life on the line, so that I think I can see the big picture ahead. And I'm marveled by it. This Virginia Hall, this woman had an artificial leg, and she shot her leg off when she was bird hunting in Turkey, but she stayed. It's a marvelous story.
Wow.
And then she had to leave France because she was the Nazis kind of knew of her, and she escaped through the Pyrenees, climbing over from France into Spain, over a mountaintop with a wooden leg. That's moxie.
Well, I mean, you're, I think, always attracted to the fearless.
Take it on.
Yeah. Thank you again so much.
You're very welcome, my friend.
Thank you for listening to Secret Heart Broadcasting. And I wonder what your secret heart's telling you.